One of the most anticipated aspects of the Wizards 2025 campaign is how the rookie Tre Johnson will fare. What if, and just what if, he becomes this team's franchise cornerstone player? What does that mean in terms of the rebuild? We'll tell you on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you're locked on to the Washington Wizards. We're your part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ben Schrover. I cover all things DC sports, 1067 The Fan, and the Team 980. As always, that's Abdullah Yubi alongside. He is the host of the very famous DMV Sports Zone page on Instagram. Be sure to check him out there. AB, how's it going today?
Tuesday, happy Tuesday, fall vibes. I love it, man. This is a great time of the year.
Yeah, it's the weather's starting to cool down a little bit. Feels good. We're getting closer to Wizards basketball, which means we're that much closer to seeing Tre Johnson live in the flesh, the 6th overall pick for the Washington Wizards in this past NBA draft. What if he becomes the cornerstone piece for this team? We're going to tell you what that would mean for this organization, how it can happen. We'll touch on that later in the segment. And then we're going to get into some training camp battles that we expect and we are looking forward to seeing. I'm going to say right here, if Tre Johnson can prove himself in his rookie season, which is going to be difficult to do because of maybe the lack of playing time that he'll have early on in the season behind CJ McCollum, who checked in at number 98 on the Locked On NBA Top 100 list, by the way, so be sure to check out that list if you're curious how everyone else fared. But if Tre Johnson can establish himself throughout the second half and really showcase himself as a ball-dominant scorer, as a guy that can be an alpha scorer alongside some of the other guys that would maybe take the weight off the shoulders of some of the other offensive players on this team, I think it would completely change maybe the way Wizards fans feel about the roster going forward and how they feel about the rebuild, because I think the consensus from a lot of Wizards fans right now is that we don't have the cornerstone player on the team right now.
You saw what he did in Texas, Ben. We mentioned the 3-level scoring. It was, for us, we were talking about him and Ace Bailey, but hindsight, obviously, I think we got the better player. But at the end of the day, you have a guy who can come in and replace what Jordan Poole was doing last season and creating his own shot. Right now, there's a lot of guys on this team where we're trying to figure out what's their cap when it comes to scoring ability. And Tre Johnson, he's up there. What he did at Texas, he can shoot it from 3 and take it inside and even be a playmaker with his size. Defensive concerns, I'm not really worried about, because at the end of the day, that size that he has was a big reason why I loved him over Jeremiah Fears. And I think if you can somehow build just a team around this guy, once he gets into year 2, year 3, this Wizards team is going to look really solid. And I don't know how early on this season he's going to be able to get those touches. For me, I want to maybe at games 10 to 15, that's when I want to see him incorporated more, because I love CJ McCollum. You mentioned 98 at top 100. But at the end of the day, CJ McCollum is not the future here in Washington. It's Tre Johnson. And Wizards fans are going to be excited. A lot of Wizards fans going to the games, we know we're not going to win, but we want to go out there and see Tre Johnson be that guy that filled that void, that star void that we haven't had in so long. Brad was cool. John Wall was cool. But Tre has potential to do what they did, but just even better.
Yeah, he had a super high usage rate at Texas, and it was pretty evident in the way he had to carry that team. I don't expect the load to be the same for him in D.C., and you hope it wouldn't have to be that way, because I think at times Tre Johnson down the stretch in some games probably got a little bit gassed, and maybe that's why he wasn't able to give the intensity that people had hoped to see from him defensively when he was at Texas. He still was able to give his all offensively. Maybe he had saved himself a little bit, or that was the plan from Texas coaching staff, and if that were honestly what they were trying to think he needed to do there, I don't blame him, because he really had to carry the bulk of the weight for that Longhorn team in a really tough SEC conference. They went 6-12 in conference play. We're still able to get into the NCAA tournament, where he shined in the one game that they did play in. But with that being said, I think Tre Johnson is going to be able to exert his energy in a lot of different ways, including the defensive side of the basketball, with some more talent around him. Obviously, you're in the NBA. Not saying the Wizards have a super talented team or they're going to have a bunch of alpha scorers alongside him. But obviously the talent is just that much more. You're not going to be expected to have a usage rate over 35% when you're playing at the NBA level. And especially if you see him getting some minutes, alongside Cam Whitmore, alongside Bilal, Alex Sarr will be on the floor with him. All those guys are going to get their touches. They're going to get their opportunities to score the basketball. So it's going to be a spot where You can pick and choose if you're Tre Johnson when you want to go out there and really assert yourself as a force offensively. But based on what we saw in the summer league, he's very comfortable with the basketball in his hands. He's very good at creating his own space, trying to find his own shot. And ultimately, I think that's why he's going to be very successful, especially early on. He looks like a guy that will be beyond his years as a scorer already early on. I think it's just a matter of how often we're going to see that, and how often are we going to see him really try to take over a basketball game? That's going to be something I'm really looking forward to seeing, is when is the first Tre Johnson takeover that he drops 30-plus points in a game?
And first buzzer beater, first ankle breaker. We're going to be looking forward to that this upcoming season. When you have a guy like Tre Johnson on your franchise team, a commodity like him is eventually down the line going to attract stars, Ben. We always talk about how guys don't want to come to DC, even though, in my opinion, it's a big market. I know it's not the LAs and New Yorks of the world, but it's a melting pot. There's a lot of different types of people here. And if you got a guy like Tre Johnson, who's a potential superstar, guys will be like, hey, I want to go play in DC. And I don't know about you, Ben, but I was thinking about it. I think Tre, when it comes to Will Dawkins' regime, I've been the most excited about when it comes to draft pick wise. I loved Alex Sarr in second overall, but what we saw, the tape of Tre Johnson put in college, I mean, that I just know 100% is going to translate to NBA.
Yeah, I feel like he's honestly the guy I've been the most excited for because last year, not a knock on Alex Sarr at all. I feel like that draft class had so little hype to it because a lot of people said it was such a weak class. And, it turns out the Wizards have actually picked up some good players, obviously, from that draft class. You hope to see a lot out of Keyshawn George. You hope to see Bub Carrington develop even more here in number 2. Same with Alex Sarr. But this draft class we knew was going to be loaded. We were disappointed to see that we got screwed in the NBA lottery. Once again, fell all the way to 6, and then you knew that you were either getting Ace Bailey or Tre Johnson. So that was just an unbelievably exciting moment for a lot of Wizards fans. One thing I think that's going to be so important and why he can be this team's franchise cornerstone player and why it's going to mean a lot for the rebuild going forward is because he has such a competitive edge to him that we haven't seen from a lot of players. He fits exactly the mold, the blueprint that this regime exactly is looking for. He's extremely diligent in how he works. I mean, we talked to Chad Myers, his head coach at the Link Academy. One of the things that he mentioned with Tre Johnson, he was a dude that was in there for 3 workouts a day. He would practice twice a day with the team. And the work ethic is something that stood out through the whole draft process. That's what Will Dawkins said. That's what Brian Keefe said as well. Everything that stands out about a player in terms of what they do off the court is something you love to see, something that makes you marketable as a franchise player. His work ethic, his pro attitude, his competitiveness. He's able to set the tone for what's going to become the new standard, hopefully, in DC. I know because they don't want any has-beens around. They don't want guys that aren't willing to put in the necessary work. He wants people that are bought in to this program, what this organization is trying to accomplish. I think Tre Johnson, he checks all the boxes for exactly what they're trying to do. And if he's able to do that and he becomes a almost all-star level player pretty early on in his career, everyone else is going to follow suit. Everyone's got to be bought in on the same exact page, and I think Tre Johnson can be the leader this team needs to get them there.
I already have expectations of him being on the first team all-rookie team. I think the touches that he's going to get, he should get, quite frankly. And the argument of him winning Rookie of the Year, I think it's still there. Cooper Flag, a lot of mouths to feed. Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, they're dealing with injuries on that team. Ace Bailey in Utah, I just don't know how it's going to work out. But what you mentioned earlier, how Tre Johnson was given so much usage in college, but now you're surrounded by a lot of young talent. I'm not saying these guys are superstars yet, but I am saying that he doesn't have to overload on work and maybe pick and rolls, pick and pops with Keyshawn, Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, a backcourt that's going to be fascinating to watch. We haven't been this excited about a backcourt since John Wall and Bradley Beal. Those days were fun too. So a lot of things to look at, a lot of narratives, and I'm all for it this upcoming season.
Yeah, he brings elite level scoring. He's got NBA ready spacing, his ability, and his professional mindset is the thing that stands out the most. He feels like he fits within Washington's young core, a modern offense that's going to make him a really tantalizing cornerstone for this team going forward. If I had to guess how long it takes for Tre Johnson to really break out, I think it happens in the second quarter of the season as we get maybe toward December or January, get close to the 2026 new calendar year. I feel like that's where Tre Johnson will really take the step we're looking for as Wizards fans. I've got such high expectations for him because everything that I've heard about the guy, everything we've seen detailed about the process he's taken to get to this point. It just really screams to me somebody that's going to be successful for this organization. I think he's up for the challenge. He knows that it's going to be a challenge to get this organization out of the mud where it's been the past couple of years, but I don't think he's somebody that's willing to shy away from any challenge. I think that actually gives him a chip on his shoulder that he fell to the 6th pick in this draft. He arguably, a lot of people had him on the board as the 3rd best player in this draft. Potentially some people had him as 2nd. He falls all the way to 6. I know that's extra motivation for a guy like him with his competitiveness.
I know people get tired of these analogies, but Ben, the confidence that I have with Tre Johnson is kind of similar to JD5. I mean, he's the guy that came, changed the franchise up, and a lot of people are not looking at it saying, how the heck did he not go 1 to the Bears, and he fell to Washington at 2. Tre Johnson at 6. A lot of people are going to say, how the heck was this dude not a top 3 pick? I'm excited, and Wizards fans should be excited.
Yeah, I know when we fell to 6, it was disappointing at the time, but we knew how talented the draft class was, and even the inklings that we got from some of the reports saying that the Wizards were pretty comfortable staying at 6 because they were pretty certain they were going to have a super talented player like Tre Johnson potentially there at 6. And everything fell into place. So I give the Wizards organization some credit there. I know they put in some calls potentially at San Antonio to move up to number 2, but I kind of just think that was the due diligence right there. I don't know if San Antonio obviously was never going to move off that pick. They wanted to go in and on Dylan Harper all the way at the 2nd overall pick, but the Wizards were certainly interested in that. Dylan Harper would obviously been a really nice piece to have, but I'm really excited for what Tre Johnson is going to be for this team. How can it happen? How can he become a franchise player for this team? How long is it going to take? We hit on that next year on Locked On Wizards. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through the day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. One of the wildest shots I ever hit on the golf course. I holed out from 150 yards for my first ever eagle. That was one of the craziest things I ever did. It was a complete fluke, not a well-calculated miracle for me. But one thing that got me through that day was the 5-Hour Energy Transfusion shot. I was able to fuel up on hole number 12 after a 7 a.m. tee time, and that was all I needed to get through the day. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun, or even more, just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2015. Reminder, visit FIVEHEWin.com for full rules. How can it happen for Tre Johnson early on? What will his minutes look like early on in his career behind C.J. McCollum? It's going to be interesting because McCollum is definitely going to start for this team. He's got a lot left in the tank. He's getting paid $33 million. So they're going to try to hopefully trade him at some point to the deadline. Maybe a contender will be able to deal some assets. I know the Wizards are going to become a hub, or they are a hub already. It's going to continue to do so, where teams are just going to bring in players on bad contracts. You get some assets in return. And if you think about it this way for the Wizards, if Tre Johnson evolves into the player that you're looking for, and it maybe kickstarts you ahead a little bit from where you want to be in 2026, where you find yourself maybe starting to compete, maybe starting to flirt with a play-in. If you have future assets like first-round picks or a plethora of seconds that you can use, you don't have to hang on to those and use those down the road if you need them. Think about it even in the Denny trade, the 2029 first-round pick, that's part of that as well. I think it's going to be the least favorable of those ones, so probably somewhere later. But if you're the Wizards, you can use those picks eventually if you are ready to compete for trade for potentially another all-star caliber player. Let's say the Wizards are needing a point guard after next year and they want to go out and trade for one. Potentially something you can do if they get the assets to do so, or they're going to be able to draft one in next year's draft. And then the possibilities are endless when you have a lot of assets to work with, because you can use it as fuel to trade for more star talent on your team. And if you have Tre Johnson alongside already as a guy that can be your cornerstone piece, that can score the basketball and be an alpha alongside some of these other guys, I think it can happen within 2 years, if we're being completely honest, because we know this is the last year where this organization really has an excuse to be in the mud, to be in the gutter. You can say, yeah, they got the top 8 protected pick that hangs over their head right now. They need to be sure that they have that 2026 pick. They don't want to let the Knicks get that from them. So, yeah, understand if the Wizards are losing plenty of basketball games this year. That's how the rebuild works. It's just how it's going to be for another year. Next year, though, you don't have that. You need to see development. You need to see meaningful improvement from these players. And with that being said, the win total should go up. You should be trying to compete night in, night out. Does that mean they get to the play-in instantly? No, not necessarily. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't know if they'll have enough talent to do so or what the outlook of the Eastern Conference will be, if it'll be as bad as it is this year. But with that being said, you got to be a lot more competitive. You'd want that win total to go up a pretty significant amount, at least in 2026, the way the Rockets did before last season where they won 50 games. The year before that, they went 41-41.
I think I agree with you there. You got to see that development come next year because, again, this is the last year of when it comes to justification of losing. Tre Johnson, going back to him, how he can be that cornerstone guy. I want to see the touches. I want to see corner threes, off the dribble pull-ups. I want to see him come off screens like Steph Curry. Plays ran by him, for him. I think Coach Keefe, if he wants to prove that he can be that coach here long term, he has to be able to maximize his player strengths. And what we've seen from Tre in the summer league and college years at Texas, I think you have to put him in ISO scoring situations. I want to see situations where he's going to be taking the last shot of the game. I love CJ McCollum. I love Chris Middleton. But down the line, Trey's going to be the one taking those shots in 2027 and 2028. So this is a great test for him to be in. And I just hope we don't see what happened last year. And I know Tre and Keyshawn and Bub, they're all different types of situations because Tre is, there's so much emphasis on him. I don't want to see Coach Keefe limit him when it comes to his potential come his rookie year. There's no point of holding him back because, again, this team is not competing. To me, it's just like it's so dumb when I see in sports where losing teams are holding back their young players and putting in guys that are older who are not going to be here in a couple years from now. It just doesn't make any sense. So my main point is play Tre Johnson. Make sure you're using him in any right scenario. And I think if he can figure out a way to be an offensive guy, defensive, I think he'll be just fine. I think he has a legit shot at winning Rookie of the Year. And going back to winning, I expect 20 to 25 wins, Ben. And if you hit past 25, I mean, that's a W year. As long as you keep that top 8 pick, because if you lose that pick, it's also going to New York, and New York's in your conference, so you just don't want that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Tre Johnson has an innate ability to really process what's happening on the basketball floor. That's one thing I took away from watching his tape. He's very good at making adjustments on the fly as the game goes on. And as the season goes on, he progressively got better and better as the season went on for Texas, even though the competition ramped up as they got into SEC play, which was a absolute freaking gauntlet last year. With that being said, I think Tre Johnson, if you give him the adequate amount of time that he needs to see on the floor, you give him opportunities to get the basketball in his hands, go to work, isolate, try to come off screens and make plays for himself, he's going to learn and develop a lot faster that way. I feel like with the ability he has to really process what the defense gives to him, what he sees from it, and he's extremely coachable. I know the staff that they have right now, a lot of people have qualms whether they're going to be here long term or not. They're supposed to be here to be developmental guys. They're supposed to be who brings the players that we have right now up so that when we are ready to compete, they'll be in the spot they need to be. With that being the case, Tre Johnson is a very coachable player. We've heard that firsthand from the guy that coached him in high school. That's everything that's been said about him since coming out of Texas. He's going to learn a lot in his first year in the NBA, and even if he has some nights where he struggles, I expect him to rebound very easily and pick up the pieces that he gains from every single experience that he is on the floor.
And one thing that I love about him, Ben, you mentioned it earlier, he wants to be here. He's dedicated to basketball. As much as I love Ace Bailey, there was so much commotion and drama about him not wanting to play for this team, and then he wants this to happen and that to happen. When it comes down to it, those guys that are dedicated to basketball, ball is life for them. Those are the ones that are students of the game. And looking at Tre Johnson, when he was given that criticism by Will Dawkins, looking at his defensive tape, he took it up at the chin and said, hey, I got to get better at it. And said a lot of superstar players in today's NBA, they get upset. They have those egos, and they're like, who the heck do you have telling me to do this and that? I'm this guy. But Tre Johnson, just, again, I love the analogy because going back to Jaden Daniels, he does everything right on the field and off the field, and we're hoping that he could be that guy here and be that role model, be the franchise, the face of the franchise that we just haven't had here in so long. And then eventually when you get that, fans will come back in the stands. Tre Johnson jerseys will sell out, and everything will fall into its place.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the humility of a player, and you need to have that as part of your repertoire. That has to be who you are personally in order to be the face of the franchise. If you look at all the guys that are the face of franchise of their respective teams, not really just around the NBA, but in any sport, these guys have a level of humility to them that makes them so special, that makes them have the innate ability to go out there and get better every single year that they play and ultimately make their teams better. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of battles in training camp, and that's going to start up pretty soon. We're really looking forward to seeing who goes after. It's going to be a competitive nature out there. What battles are we looking forward to seeing in training camp in the preseason? We're going to tell you next on Locked On Wizards. It's going to be competitive out there, AB. What are you looking for the most right here in training camp in the preseason?
I know this is probably the most common one, but Cam Whitmore versus Bilal Coulibaly, guys who have polar opposites and what we want to see from them. Cam is a guy who is a fresh new start here in DC. What happened in Houston, you showed off what you could do, but can you translate it here back in your hometown? Bilal Coulibaly, you want that extension. You want to prove why you were that guy that was drafted 7th overall. The Wizards traded up for you a pick to get you a guy who offensively is still raw, but at what point do we stop using that excuse for him and just saying that, hey, it just didn't pan out offensively? I want those guys to go at it because they're going to be competing for minutes. And there's a logjam. We mentioned it when it comes to wing position because you drafted Will Riley. You still have Justin Champagnie. Keyshawn Jordan maybe could play it to 3 if you put Vucevic at the 4 and start at the 5 or vice versa. A lot that for me, that's the main one. There's obviously a lot more, but those guys are going to duke it out because, again, they want to prove why they can be that starting caliber player in DC.
One battle I'm looking forward to, I'm not saying it's going to be a direct competition because I think the job is all the way going to be Bub Carrington's, but I'm interested to see how A.J. Johnson fares in the preseason, what it looks like with him because, there's going to be maybe a real opportunity for him to be a backup point guard for this team, at least at some point this year if he's not either playing minutes with a go-go or whatever happens with that situation because the team did buy out Marcus Smart. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I know it's really Bub Carrington's job to lose right now, but A.J. Johnson, another guy that possesses unbelievable athleticism, one of the guys we talked about in yesterday's episode, he had a couple dunks last year where he was over 35 inches on the vertical. He can jump out the gym. Can he put it together and be a true playmaker for this team? He's going to go up against Bub Carrington, obviously, all the time in practice, those two going at it. And we'll see if A.J. Johnson has an extra spark to his game. I know it was a kind of a mixed bag in the summer league for him, but benefit of the doubt for him is that he was out there playing with a lot of guys that obviously were not going to be part of the roster come the NBA season. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares in the preseason. I'm going to have my eyes on him for sure.
I want to see. I know this is not much competition, Ben, but Alex Sarr. I mean, you brought in Marvin Bagley. Maybe you want to put Vucevic at the 5. I want him to think that, hey, there's still competition, someone coming out there from my spot. I don't want him to have that, hey, like, I'm on easy mode right now. Like, we want to see the high motor from Alex Sarr. That's one thing that we're always harping on. Effort, rebounding. I need to see at least 9 rebounds this year, Ben. I always say that if you're the tallest dude on the court, you should be averaging the most rebounds when it comes to statistics. So that's what I'm looking forward to. CJ and Trey, that narrative of when CJ will eventually be in the driver's seat, when will Trey get the keys? I think maybe hopefully by game 20 to 25, we'll see that in the season, but we'll just have to see because, again, Will Dawkins wants to maximize the trade value of CJ and a lot of narratives, Ben, but for me, I just hope that whatever happens in training camp, this team is ready to play basketball, ready to play competitive basketball with the capital C because last year we lost to the Indiana Pacers. I know Indiana Pacers went to the NBA Finals, but I'm saying, for example, you lost by 60 points at home, giving up 150. You cannot, and I mean this, you cannot have that happen again this year. You can't have 2 multiple double-digit game losing streaks. It's just unexcusable, especially if you want us fans like me and you and other fans of the district to believe in what Will Dawkins is doing. You have to be able to play competitive basketball, whether it's a contending team or the worst team in the NBA.
AB, what's one narrative around this Wizards franchise right now that you don't buy heading into the 2025 season?
Don't buy.
Anything you've maybe heard or
Like
just
from,
a narrative?
outside. I think people just treating this team as a cakewalk. I've seen a lot of fans. I get it. The Wizards haven't been that successful recently, but I think a lot of NBA fans will. There's going to be games where they're going to be like, "Oh, hey, this is easy when we're playing Washington." But I genuinely believe this team is going to be way more competitive because the surplus of talent that they have this year, and the youth movement we saw the second half of the season compared to the first half, it was night and day difference. So the idea of the Wizards being one of the worst teams and everyone's going to cakewalk them, I think that's absurd.
I hope you're right. I really hope they are competitive night in, night out. Even if they are losing a lot of games, I hope it's a situation.
I say this, Ben, in game one against the Celtics, we lose by 40.
By 40, you said?
I'm saying
okay.
all this, and we'll look back in game one and we lose by 30.
Man, that would be not a very fun video to make if that does happen, but it is Boston, I guess, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. That is true. Well, Boston's not going to be the same team this year, that's for sure. They'll still be good. I'm not really doubting Boston right now. They still have plenty of talent, obviously. Jaylen Brown's going to be out there probably scoring 40 points against us on opening night. Hopefully that's not the case, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Oh, we have to win an in-season tournament game. There's no way we can go another year without that. I mean, it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right about that. 0-8 through the first 2 years of the NBA Cup, so hopefully they can finally change that and get a W on the board for that. That'll do it for us here today on Locked On Wizards. Tre Johnson, the focus of the episode. Do you believe he has what it takes to become a cornerstone player for this team within 2 years? I think he can. I think he might have the mentality. I think he's got the ability and the humility to do so, not just because of how good he is on the basketball floor, but how strong he is mentally. He has all the mental tools he needs to become an absolute dog for this team. We want to thank everyone for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today and every single day. For your second, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA Top 100, voted on the NBA host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Top 100 is formed by experts that cover these teams and players every day. Be sure to check out all that content on Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, for my co-host Abdullah, you be checking out host of the DMV Sports Zone page for the best DMV sports content out there. I'm Ben Strober, and you can check me out on my socials at Strober Sports. Wizards Nation, we're out.